Hi guys, welcome to my channel. It's Amatullah. Today I'm going to be talking about my experiences as a Black student in white institutions. So I just wanted to say that I was inspired to make this video by a live that I watched of a girl who shared her experiences in a really similar situation that really resonated with me and helped me to put my experiences in context. So I'm just hoping that, someone who has had similar experiences and hasn't yet kind of seen those connections or seen the connections through all of them sees this and that it can help someone. From 3rd to 5th grade, I went to GFS, which is an independent school here in Philadelphia. I feel like it's pretty well known, but Philadelphia's public school system, Schools of Philadelphia, whatever, the system is like pretty poorly run and underfunded. Just pretty trash all around. There's so many schools that are failing, and it's like really unfortunate. There's so many students who are graduating from high school and they're just like totally unprepared for college or for whatever else they might want to do. And so the system is basically designed to just keep Black people in poverty. Philadelphia has like a lot of neighborhoods, and the way the system works is that you basically end up going to your neighborhood school, at least for elementary and middle school. And like coincidentally, whatever, unsurprisingly, the neighborhood schools in like predominantly Black areas are like totally different than the neighborhood school in majority white areas. All of the good options for middle and elementary school are in like these like a little bit more affluent areas, and it's like this whole thing where there's like not enough spaces, all these things. Additionally, the schools in these like non-white neighborhoods are saddled with so many other problems. There are like physical problems like lead and mold and toxic chemicals like in the building with the children. There's no AC, and it's generally just like really not a comfortable place to be. There's a lot of like policing in schools as well. So because of this, parents who know about these options tend to try to get their children into alternative options. So this could be like charter schools or religious schools or independent schools, which we have a lot in Philadelphia because our schools are so terrible. So my parents chose to send me to this independent school. The reason they chose this particular one, because there are a lot of super similar schools in Philadelphia and in the surrounding area. This was like a Quaker school, so there are a ton of those around here, and there are also a ton of schools that are like similarly in the same like group, but like not Quaker, whatever. But yeah, basically, in one of my mom's classes, there was a GFS alum, and he basically was like, if you have Black children, this is like probably the best option for them in this like group of schools. And I guess like from whatever other research she did, like that seemed to be the case, so she sent us there. I honestly don't really remember most of like the first 2 years, I guess 2-3 years of my time there. I remember like definitely parts, but like I don't know, it was like fine, I guess. I know in 4th grade I got in trouble because I didn't want to be friends with someone who wanted to be friends with me, and it was like a whole thing. They contacted my parents, and the reason I know this is because my mom, when she like talks about like this period in our lives, she just gets really stuck because she's like, they like called me and like they had all these meetings, but like this kid just called my brother the N-word on the bus, and the school did absolutely nothing about it. They did not even contact my parents, let them know what happened. They found out from us, and they contacted the school to have something done, but it was kind of like more brushed under the rug, whereas this like thing that is much smaller in comparison was like the top of everyone's to-do list or whatever. That probably should have been a sign that it was like time to leave, but I feel like when you're living in the moment, things feel like isolated incidents, even though they're definitely not when you kind of look back. So yeah, we stayed for a little bit longer. But yeah, for me, middle school is like much clearer. I can mostly just remember being like absolutely miserable. I hated it. I would like constantly like find other schools and send my mom like links to them or like emails or whatever, being like, I would like to go here instead. I think they were all like other independent schools, because like for me, I didn't know that like what the problem was. So like I just felt like it was a problem that I was having with this particular institution. Yeah, I feel like there were a lot of things that happened that like I can look back now and be like, oh, that was like racism, that was a microaggression, whatever. But in the moment, I just like didn't know. And I like recently watched, I think it was yesterday, I watched a live from someone who went to Springside or SCH, whatever you want to call it, which is another like similar school in Philadelphia, about her experience as a Black student, mostly focusing on high school. And even though I was in middle school at the time, I definitely related to a lot of the things that she was talking about. And she was saying that like people, like I didn't see the live like as it was happening, but like people in the comments who were like from other schools were saying like they had very similar experiences. So I know that like these, like I feel like, so when I was younger, I really felt like it was like the problem was me. I was having these like experiences, or the problems like the school. But like now I can see, you know, hindsight's 2020. It's really a problem with the system in these types of institutions, and kind of the lack of care that they provide for their Black students, and honestly just members of their community who are Black. So I think one thing that was different from me, like from what this girl was talking about, is that she was like, yeah, I don't really know that I have any like white friends from SCH, but I have like I have my strong group of Black friends. I think this changes a bit like in like high school, upper school, whatever you want to call it, when like more students transfer in, including with Black students. But for me, like that wasn't really a possibility. I think that there were like 4 or 5 Black students in my class throughout my entire time at GFS, and like that's like someone left, someone came, but like it was never more than that. So, and we were like usually pretty separated, so there was no opportunity to really have that like close group of Black friends in my situation. I think another thing that when you're a kid is kind of difficult in these situations is that you don't realize it, but you're literally going to school with the children of some of the wealthiest people in Philadelphia. And so as a kid, you might like compare yourself to them or compare like your situation to theirs, and you might like feel a little insecure sometimes, because if you think that that's like, if that's the norm, you know, where you are, and you think that's normal, but like really your situation is the normal one. So that's just like another thing, I guess, that like was difficult. Yeah, so throughout my time there, I like had some issues with students and teachers, and I feel like there was just like a really clear double standard that like just kept being enforced. And like anytime you like stepped outside of where you were supposed to be, or like where like teachers thought you were supposed to be, they would put you in your place, you know? Yeah, so I know like my 3rd grade teacher, Megan, said some like shady kind of like anti-Black things. I remember a very specific incident that's still kind of like upsetting to me today, where in 7th grade, my English teacher, Will, like approached me after class. So we were reading this book, 47. It's like about slavery. I feel like it was, I don't really remember most of the book, but like I'm pretty sure that like the main character goes back in time and like befriends a slave, or maybe it might be that his best friend on the plantation has come from the future or something. I don't really know, but it's like sci-fi but like slavery. Like we were talking about the book in class, whatever. I did the reading, I like had my notes, but like I guess I didn't say anything. And he like approached me after class and was like, I just want to make sure that like you like speak up more, like you don't feel comfortable with this topic. I don't know, it was just like made me super duper uncomfortable that he was like, you need to talk more about slavery as the only Black voice in this class. And I also think that like I don't remember every day, you know, of that class, but I'm not a super talkative person in class anyway. So I feel like there were definitely other days in that class, in whatever class, where I didn't speak up. I feel like these type of interactions happen all the time. One example of it happening with a student is on the bus. I just want to give a little background information. So the way the bus system worked there made zero sense. There were like 4 bus routes. I don't remember where one of them went, but one of them went to Chestnut Hill, one of them went to Mount Airy, one of them went to like Center City, one of them went somewhere else, I don't know. And so we live like closer to Center City, so it would make sense for us to be on that bus, but instead we were placed on the Mount Airy bus, which is so far, like literally we like went further north, like from where our school was to get, and then come like circle back around. So it didn't really make any sense. And we had to wake up super early. I feel like our assigned bus time was like 6 something. I don't, maybe 6:30, 6:15. I don't really remember. And another thing that didn't make sense is that the bus driver would literally pick us up. We were the first stop, pick up students from one other house, and then we would like drive and we would sit on the side of the road for like 20 to 30 minutes before we like picked up anyone else. It didn't make any sense. It was like, it didn't make any sense. So, you know, this is the life that I lived. I was very upset, like waking up super early, getting home really late, all these things. And so one day I was on the bus and this girl Anna was on the bus with me, and I don't know, we were like probably 20 minutes. We were on the way home, probably 20 minutes from school, and I was just like, oh, I don't really know what the conversation was. I just remember this part. But I was like, oh, I'd like to live like somewhere like there. And I like pointed to a house on a street, and really like for me it was about being closer to school, and also a little bit about being, I think, closer to like my friends or like the people who I wanted to be friends with, because most people did live in this area who went to the school. They either lived in like Mount Airy, Chestnut Hill, so it just would have made things easier. Yeah, and I remember this incident because her response was, well, those types of houses are really expensive. She just assumed that because I was Black, like we couldn't afford that type of house. The thing is that like GFS is not like a cheap school to go to. Literally, like the prices are, you know, the same basically for all these types of schools across the country. It's like 32 to 33,000 for lower school, like 36, 37,000 for middle school, and like 40,000 for upper school. So, you know, we're here, we're paying the tuition. It didn't really make any sense. And so like for me, I just like felt like, wow, so like apparently I'm like, I just felt like she was saying like I was poor and like I didn't deserve to live in this neighborhood, like I couldn't. Yeah, and that was just like really hurtful. And I like think about that because I'm like, this girl like who is, you know, going into this like liberal progressive school, is supposed to be coming from this like white liberal family or whatever, is clearly harbors racist sentiments. She probably still does today. Who knows how many other students do, and it's like teachers like who continue to like perpetuate these systems. And yeah, like it's not like the school is super diverse, right? Like there's like I said, there was like 5 Black students out of I think 70 students. And those proportions honestly probably stayed fairly similar. Maybe it went up a little bit in upper school. But yeah, and then as far as teachers go, I think that I had 2 Black teachers. I get 3, I guess. My computer teacher was also Black, but I think we only saw her like once a week in lower school, so. But not that many Black faces. Then a bunch of things happened that made my parents decide not to send me to GFS for upper school. And I didn't really know about all these things at the time. And I feel like I really wish I had known, because it would have made like things easier. Because the thing is that I really wanted to leave GFS, but then I didn't love like where I ended up. So it kind of like made me look back at that time with like rose-tinted glasses. But I feel like, I don't know, maybe knowing these things would have like helped with that. But yeah, one thing that happened is that our head of school retired, and they were looking for a replacement for a new head of school. And all 3 heads of like the smaller schools, like head of lower school, head of middle school, head of upper school, were all Black. And I believe they all applied for the position of head of school and like were considered, but like didn't make it very far, which I think is really interesting because they had all served in their respective positions for like a number of years and had done so well. So it was kind of like a question of why weren't they really, thought of or like seriously considered for head of school position. And I know for a fact that two of them did end up moving on after that incident and became heads of schools at other really similar schools. So it's not that they were unqualified or whatever. It kind of, in this case, it really does seem like it was tied to race. And then as far as the third woman goes, honestly, we didn't really know her that well because we hadn't gone to upper school yet. So I'm not really sure if she stayed or if she didn't. But yeah. A couple of other things that happened that made my parents not want to send us there for upper school is that there was a student dating a teacher. I didn't really know about this at the time. I had no idea until a lot later. Yeah, there was a student dating a math teacher in the upper school, and everyone knew and no one did anything about it. And like that's obviously very wrong on a lot of levels. So, I think one red flag for any parent would be that. And then another thing is apparently one time, and my mom literally just recently told me this, but she was in the library, I guess waiting to pick us up, and she overheard two upper school students, one was white, one was black, and the white girl was berating the black girl because she was, I don't know if maybe she was considering choosing Howard or she had committed to Howard, but she's basically just like, why would you choose that? I've never heard of that, like sounds like trash. And so I think a lot of like similar incidents happened and just like kind of it all came together for my parents to just be like, this is not the place we want to send our children. And I think that I'm grateful that I didn't end up there. Like, I don't think I would have been happier, the longer I spent there. That certainly is not how it worked out. The first 5 years, so like, why would I stay for more time? And these incidents, I do want to like kind of make it clear that these things do happen everywhere. Like I mentioned earlier, I watched a live from someone who went to a very similar school. She had some really similar stories. She had other stories she was talking about. A lot of things that I think really do take a toll on you. Like, as a black student, you like don't get invited to like all of the like parties and stuff, like people's birthday parties or bar mitzvahs, whatever. And the thing is, you literally know they're happening. Even some people, like, you think that they're your friends, like you literally talk to them every day, you guys get lunch together, you do all the things together, and then you're just like not invited to this thing. Everyone comes back on like Monday or whatever, and they all have like whatever the party favor was, and you think that it's like about you as a person. You're like, well, I guess I'm just not good enough to be friends with these people, blah blah blah. And the school did have a rule, at least I was told there was a rule that you had to invite people to everything. This was like in lower school, and I remember that I invited everyone in my class to my like birthday party because like you have to. But then like later I found out that like other people didn't know about this rule, didn't think this was a rule, didn't have to follow the rule. And I feel like the rule was probably put in place so that people like me didn't feel so excluded, and instead it was kind of used to like make sure that we included people in more of a one-sided way. But yeah, this kind of thing happens, and I feel like you can't see the bigger picture, so you don't know that it's not just you that they're not inviting, you don't know that you're not like the problem. So anyway, in Philadelphia, the high school situation I guess is a little better. We have like a bunch of magnet schools that you can like apply to, and these are like the top schools in the city. And so a lot of people from those like wealthier public schools go there. And then also some people from these independent schools and religious schools go to these schools. And then like there are also some spots that are left for like people from less great elementary and middle schools who can apply and like get in. So I ended up going to Central, which at the time might have been the top. I don't know, I think it like alternates between Central and Masterman for who's the top school, or maybe not SLA. I went there for 3 years. I hated every second of it. Yeah, and I feel like another thing is I wonder how if information is intentionally kept from people sometimes. Because I know that like there were like 3 people, 4, 5 maybe of us who I knew for sure, like in my middle school A3 class had like applied to Central and SLA. And magically, like these two like white kids, they were all white except for me, obviously, because there weren't that many of us, knew like how to like visit and knew that they had like an interview process and all these things. And when I asked my mom later, like, oh, why didn't we apply to SLA? She was like, literally, we just didn't know that the interview was required. That information was never passed along to us. So I feel like, I don't know, these things like continue to happen. But anyway, I want to talk about Central because for me, like it was like really clear that there were two Centrals, and I feel like this is something that happens a lot in suburban public schools, but doesn't happen in these independent schools, probably just because, actually it probably does happen. And it's because I know that like there are accelerated classes at TFS and they're like more in the upper schools, so I'm like wondering who exactly is in these accelerated classes. But basically, if you know about like tracking or things like that, like that's kind of what was going on at Central. So there were basically two Centrals. There was like the Central that everyone talks about where like, you know, you're getting a great, I guess you're probably getting a pretty good education comparatively no matter which Central you go to. But one Central is like the regular classes, whatever, and the other one is like people who get to, you know, get to take advantage of mentally gifted classes, honors classes, IB classes, and AP classes. And so I was really fortunate. I came in as an MG student, and most of my classes were MG and honors, and then junior year I started taking IB classes. Yeah, and I noticed that in my classes, you know, Central was definitely a much more diverse school, but there were still not very many Black students in my classes. And it's because you like start out and you're tracked, and it's like partially, I guess, how your other school prepared you. So if you like got in but you didn't go to like the best school and you didn't place into an honors class, you might not, like an honors math class, you might just end up on the regular math track for the rest of your time there. And that also affects, like, you know, colleges always talk about how they look at what you decided to do with what you had. And they're always like, oh, if you didn't have AP classes, then like of course you didn't take them. But if you had all these AP classes available to you, why didn't you take any? Like that's kind of the vibe. And then also taking these classes really affects your GPA and your class rank, because I think for MG and honors classes it was like a 1.1 weighting, and then maybe IB and AP was like 1.2 or 3 or something. I don't really remember, but I do know they were weighting a little higher, which means that your GPA is going to be higher if you do well, obviously. But like if people are getting A's, all A's, like your GPA is automatically going to be higher if you're in these other classes, which means your class rank will be higher, which means, you know, you're looking a little bit more competitive to colleges. And it's really, there's like a clear race divide in these classes. Yeah, oh, I did want to talk about, so one thing that, you know, is pretty common, I guess, in public schools in Philadelphia, it's just like I said, there's no AC. It's really, really dimly lit. The buildings are really dimly lit, and there are literally security guards. You have to walk through metal detectors when you come in the morning. There are teachers policing the hallways during class times, I guess kind of make sure that you're in class, or like policing what you're wearing, all of these things. One thing is that you could have lunch at literally any period, so I don't know how someone would know that you were like not in class versus like not just being in lunch, because you could go anywhere for that. But it really, to me, like coming from a school I was able to, you know, go outside during the day, you know, where classrooms were well lit, all these things, like I really felt like I was going into a prison. And I don't want to like, you know, minimize or like anything that I experienced people who were actually, you know, incarcerated, but like that's how it felt to me. And that's kind of how students were treated. I remember we got yelled at. So something that doesn't make any sense, shocking, is that classes end and then we're in school for a couple of extra weeks while we wait for our report cards. You have to go to school every day, you have to swipe in so that you don't have a bunch of like absent days on your attendance, but you literally don't do anything in classes. Teachers will just be like, don't bother coming, and you're just like stuck in school. Some people, you know, like sneak out, whatever. And I remember we were playing Uno one day in like in a stair. It wasn't a stairwell, like a main stairwell. It was like, I don't know. It was kind of, I guess, the hallway, whatever. And some staff person came up and yelled at us, and she was just like, "You know, you're not allowed to play cards, blah blah blah." And I was like, I literally had no idea. First of all, the rule I think was like that you can't play like normal cards because like you don't want people betting. So one, she was wrong. But two, like you're just like assuming that I've been in this like system, and so like these rules are never presented to you. One thing that I did notice at Central is that people self-segregated by race, and like obviously we're able to do that. This was a huge school. It was like 2,400 students. Yeah, for me this was the first time that that was even an option. So I went to a school that was basically all Black for 2 years. I went to a school that was super mixed. It was like Arab, Desi, African American, for 2 years. And then I went to GFS, where it was basically all white. So there's never this opportunity for people to like obviously self-segregate, and especially like at this level because there were so many people. And so for me, I really struggled because I was like, well, I have a lot of common experiences with, you know, some of these like white kids, and then I'm like used to hanging out. Like before that, I hung out with, you know, Arabs and Desis, because I went to Islamic school. So like, you know, I have something in common with them. And then obviously I'm Black, and we seem to be self-segregating by race. So should I like hang out with them? So I kind of had like this issue, and then I also had this thing where like you don't really fit in with anyone because there are always things that like you don't connect with, or like people make fun of you for. So like, and I don't think I hung out with larger groups. You know, I had like smaller, like more mixed groups of people that I hung out with because of that. Yeah, and just because I felt kind of like ostracized in all groups. On the teacher front, I feel like honestly there were some pretty good teachers. Yeah, like Miss Haskins, Mr. Hung, others that I can't think of right now. Oh, Mr. Patton. Like there were a few really good teachers. There were a few horrible teachers. Mr. Cottonstein, Mr. Copeland, Mr. Shaji. Did I learn anything in those classes? I don't think so. But for me, like the incident that kind of sticks out to me is when I was in IB psychology, my teacher, Mr. Fabry, literally like attacked me and said that I was entitled because essentially the thing about our IB group is that it was basically maybe like 70% like white students, and a lot of them had come from these independent schools or whatever. Yeah, so I kind of like, I didn't know any of them before, but like we like had, you know, mutual friends or whatever. Friends for me. Yeah, so like we like had some things in common, whatever, and literally I think we really acted kind of the same, but he never like said anything about them. It was really just like a thing that I felt like it was just like, you don't deserve attack like this is kind of what he was saying. And I feel like I have maybe like one other time someone did say, like another white person, of course. I don't think any Black person has honestly ever called me entitled, because the thing is that people call people entitled when they don't think that they deserve something that they feel that they deserve, or they act like they deserve. And so if you don't think someone deserves respect, or you know, some like you don't think someone deserves, I don't know, kindness, whatever it is, you're gonna think that they're entitled. So in college, I went to 2 white institutions, and the first one, I don't know, I felt like my troubles stemmed from just like the population. It was people were kind of all from the same place. It was all of these white students. It was very like regional, I guess. Regional to like New England, and a lot of them were like working class. And I don't know, I had that like those same feelings where they were like, I feel like this is something that happens a lot with like the white working class, is they're just like really resentful towards Black people just because they feel like you know, you're told that your race affords you certain things, and then you're like, but I'm not above you, so how can this be, you know? So that happens a lot. Yeah, anyway, so I transferred and I ended up at this like elite liberal arts college where I probably had the worst 3 years of my life. And I think that part of like what made this experience so bad is that I just felt like I had quit like so many things, because like I just left this like other school, like so, like I just like really felt like I had to like stick things out here, even I probably should have moved on. So like I really wanted to transfer again, but I like, one, I was like, well, this just makes me a quitter, and then two, I was really concerned about like how that would look on like my, like to I guess to employers or to graduate schools, whatever. So yeah, I like stayed there. Even within the school there were things that like I wanted to quit, but like I just felt like I couldn't. So for instance, I was part of this like club sports team. It was super toxic, and honestly I didn't want to join in the first place. Like I was super excited originally before I like met anyone. Then I went to like the first day of tryouts. They weren't tryouts, and I absolutely hated it. I really wanted to quit, and I just kept hoping that they would cut me. Because I was like, if they cut you, it's not quitting, you know? Sadly that didn't happen. I like stayed on that team for a year until like I guess it's lucky like that the environment just got like too toxic to handle, because otherwise I would have just stayed it, but it was still toxic, you know? Yeah, and I just like found myself in like a stream of super uncomfortable situations throughout my time in sophomore. So I did want to share a few other experiences or interactions that have happened, you know, with people at Swarthmore. One is this experience that I had that, I don't know, to me it was so shocking. I don't think that I've ever had this type of experience in America, or at least like not recently. Like I cannot remember having this type of thing. But basically this girl asked me where in Africa I was from, and then she immediately followed up with, oh, do you not know? Like, was that supposed to be an attack? I just feel like at this point people know that you're not supposed to do that. And this girl literally went to Deerfield, which is, you know, considered one of the top schools in America, and then she also went to two of the most elite undergraduate institutions. So at this point she should have learned just not to do that. So either these, this is just another example of these institutions continuing to fail Black students by, you know, producing students who are just ignorant, or this is just an example of just another person just not caring about the Black experience. Either way, it just doesn't make very much sense. So the next experience is with someone who has just made it clear time and time again that he thinks that Black people are less than. So I guess the first experience that I want to share is just when he basically just made it clear that he thought that I was like uncultured because I was Black. And the thing is, this person does not know so many things, right? Like, how can you be so arrogant and yet so ignorant? It just doesn't make any sense. But basically, one day he was just like, oh, like this, I feel like this was fairly out of the blue. He was just like, yeah, you haven't traveled very much. And I was like, excuse me? Like, I don't like to brag about my travel experiences, but I do feel like I've traveled quite a bit in my life. Yeah, so I was like, I'm sorry, what do you mean? I feel like I've traveled a lot. And he goes, oh, well, where have you traveled to? So what that showed me is that he actually didn't know my travel history. He didn't care. And he just wanted to make sure it was made clear to me that he thinks that I'm uncultured and untraveled. And, you know, perhaps I just can't afford travel because I'm Black. And then the same person, I guess, insinuated, made whatever you want to call it, that he just didn't think that African Americans had a culture, because he just made that clear many times. I don't want to deal with, like, live through that again. But yeah, that has been made clear many times. And, you know, these are the same people who are now posting these performative posts about Black Lives Matter. One or all, I don't remember. I've definitely seen like this post going around a few times. It's like, how to talk to your Asian parents about Black Lives Matter. And then, you click on it, and it's like one of the first things is like making sure they understand that supporting Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that like anything gets taken away from them. Like, Black Lives Matter has been a movement and an organization for years. Black people have been being murdered in the streets for years, right? So how are we just now getting to the point where you're thinking about considering starting the conversation with your parents, letting them know that, Black people aren't evil and all of their anti-Blackness and racism isn't okay? Like, it's been years. Some of these people are college grads. You're out from under your parents' roof. Like, what's your excuse? Do you just not value Black lives? I don't know. I feel like maybe I don't, want to claim that I know what's going on in these people's heads, but maybe it's like, oh, we value lives. Like, we don't think people should be murdered, but like they don't actually care about like Black lives. They don't care about like equality. And I feel like it's been made pretty clear that actually that they don't care about equality, but it's up to them to show that that's actually not the case. But yeah, so the narrative of these people has just kind of always been that you care about yourself and you care about your proximity to white privilege and getting closer to that, and they don't care about equality. So I just think that it's really important to like be aware of these people and try to keep some distance between you and them just for your own mental health. I think it's totally fine to, have people in your circle who are still, doing the work, but, I wouldn't want to have those people in my inner circle. I wouldn't want to have those people, closest to me who I just like can't trust to do the right thing and take action in ways that aren't super performative. And I feel like for me, being at this school, it was the first time that I seriously was like, I should have gone to an HBCU. Like, because I think that all my life, because I've been in these like mixed situations, I was like, I didn't see the need, I guess. I was like, I'm totally comfortable in these like situations. It's totally fine. But I feel like at this point, a lot of the people at HBCUs are people who've been in like my situation, and you just want to have a change and like finally not just be this like minority that everyone steps on. Yeah, I don't know. Consider HBCUs. Yeah, so to summarize, these are just like my experiences being a Black student in these different white spaces. And I know people call these spaces like predominantly white spaces, whatever, but they really are white spaces and white institutions that white people like truly do feel entitled to and like feel like they have ownership over. I'm gonna go back to that live that I keep talking about, or that I referenced, but literally someone had like commented on like a post kind of similar to that this girl had posted, and it was one of the parents of a student at that school, and she was like, if you don't like it or you don't feel uncomfortable, you can just leave. Like, where are we supposed to go? Like, this is happening literally everywhere. It doesn't make any sense, and people are just so against like even thinking about changing it or actually like critically looking at themselves and their institutions and the things that they've built that really do like create these systems that really do harm to Black students. One thing I totally forgot to mention earlier, but it's part of the reason that my parents weren't going to send me to GFS for upper school, is because there's a really high suicide rate among Black students and Black alums there. And it's because like it just gets to be too much. Like you're just like you're in this situation every day. And I can't speak to like that particular experience being in the upper school. I don't know if it gets better because you have your friends like that, you have other Black students, whatever, but like it's a lot to like live through. And because you want the education, like these are literally some of the best schools in the city. Sometimes some of them are like maybe some of the best schools in the state, whatever, and you are going to be getting a good education and you want that. So you sacrifice, I guess, your emotional well-being for your future, basically. And parents and students shouldn't have to make that decision. So I'm talking about experiences in educational institutions, but this kind of thing happens like everywhere. And we're, as Black people, we're constantly doing things, trying to make white people and non-Black people comfortable, and no one's ever trying to do anything to make us comfortable, and it just doesn't make any sense. People are like, okay, I have a small scale of example of just like people clearly not caring about my comfort when I'm like, you know, doing things that like make them comfortable. So a non-Black student posted, you know, the typical performative Instagram story about like her friends who were graduating this year, and so I was included in that list. And she like posted something. She was like, "Congratulations on graduating, even though I know it was hard at some times," or something like that, or was hard sometimes. And she didn't say that for anyone else. One, I feel like it's hard for everyone at times. It's kind of like the typical experience. So I was like I was mildly offended, I guess. I was like kind of uncomfortable to post, but I was like, oh, you're supposed to like thank people, I guess. So then I sent her probably the fakest like thing that I've ever done. I was like, oh, that was so sweet, blah, blah, blah. Because I felt like that's what I was supposed to do in the situation. And then she just like didn't say anything. And I feel like in that situation, someone comments on my story, like I just feel like I have to, you know, respond to them. That's like, I don't know, it's just like for me, like I feel like I'm doing something wrong. Like I would have felt like I was doing something wrong if I hadn't responded to her originally. And in her situation, if like I didn't respond, I would feel like I was doing something wrong. And it's just like you're always like pandering to other people and like trying to like make them more comfortable, and they really just don't care about you. So yeah, anyway, those are my experiences as a Black person, as a Black student at these white institutions over the past, I don't know, like 15 years or something. Thanks for watching. Feel free to share your experiences kind of navigating these spaces. Yeah, all right, bye.